I'm going to be tracking your weekend rain chances coming up in a few minutes. Right now, though, shifting gears on April 8th, it's time to talk tropics this morning. I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming hurricane season, some of the factors at play that Colorado State will be considering when releasing their forecast as we go into this late this morning and this afternoon. Number one being, and this is the big one almost every year, water temperatures off of Peru in the Pacific. Of course, we are in a La Nina setup now that favored an active season last season. Water starting to warm, probably not all the way to El Nino, but we may have more of a neutral scenario. And if it is on the cool side of neutral, we could be almost in the same state of La Nina as far as impacts to our hurricane season. That would favor an active hurricane season here locally. Also, we will be watching local water temperatures in the Atlantic Basin. How quickly do they recover? Do they warm up and add energy to any potential tropical system moving on through? So a lot to consider here today. Again, we will be watching for these factors to evolve. This is not a set in stone forecast. We're just looking at the early guidance. Colorado State will be as well, and giving that best bet or that best forecast. We'll be watching water temperatures if they continue to warm and approach El Nino values. Again, unlikely we could have a lesser sort of active scenario in the Atlantic Basin, something we'll be watching here pretty quickly. Again, that forecast coming out later this morning. I'll be on Morning Break talking more about it a little bit later on. Meteorologist Andrew Gordon watching the roadway. Speaking of the coastline, gorgeous 278 drive out there this morning. And I'm live on Tybee Island, 54 days until the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season. We'll talk about a forecast coming out today and some changes coming out of the National Hurricane Center here right after the break.
And today, forecasters at Colorado State are releasing this season's forecast. Cutter Martin is here to break it all down. And first, Cutter, why are hurricane experts from a landlocked state the focus of this hurricane forecast?
You know, the pioneer of that program, Dr. Gray, began this decades ago, truly a pioneer of meteorology and tropical forecasting. That was the school he landed at, and he developed that team, which is still not only nationally renowned, but world renowned. So kind of a coincidence. A lot of the data they use to develop these forecasts, though, it's available publicly, and you don't necessarily have to be in a hurricane impact zone to be able to study hurricanes and develop those forecasts. Today is a big day, though. We're officially 54 days out from the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season, of course, that being June 1st. A lot of factors to consider, the first of which, as we take a look at our graphics this morning, the state of the water temperature in the Pacific Ocean, south and west of Mexico, off the coast of Peru. You're familiar with these terms by now: La Nina, neutral, or El Nino. Last year was La Nina. We had a super active hurricane season here in the Atlantic Basin. Waters are warming towards El Nino, but looking like the most likely scenario is either a very weak La Nina or a cool neutral. Just generally know cooler ocean waters in that region tend to favor active hurricane seasons across the Atlantic Basin, but we will be watching that forecast closely because it could impact our numbers and the impact to the United States pretty significantly depending on how it evolves through the spring and into the summer. Also, we're going to be watching our own waters, water temperatures, how much energy, fuel, so to speak, hurricanes and tropical systems will have to use as they travel over these ocean currents. Now, keep in mind, that's just one factor when looking at hurricane strength and hurricane forecast. Everything else has to be in place in order for that energy to really be realized and for those hurricanes to strengthen. So kind of summarizing, just know the forecast is not set in stone. There is still uncertainty, but we're favoring a cool, neutral scenario in the Pacific, maybe a little less wind shear across the Atlantic, and possibly, if not likely, having another busier than average hurricane season. Exact numbers, impact zones, we're going to be fine-tuning that along with many other forecast teams here over and through the next few months. So we'll be keeping you updated on that forecast. Officially, Colorado State releasing that at 10 a.m. and another entity preparing for the upcoming hurricane season. It's the National Hurricane Center, and they are making a big change this year. Chief Meteorologist Dave Turley chatted with them yesterday. Here's what they had to say.
You know, we've had some pre-June activity in the Atlantic for many of the last several years, and because of that, we've decided to start issuing our routine Atlantic tropical weather outlook on May 15th. And that's the product we issue every 6 hours that talks about the potential for tropical depressions or tropical storms to form in the Atlantic Basin. And that'll just provide a more consistent level of service instead of relying on sort of unscheduled or special outlooks that we issued more than 30 of last year. So it'll really get that information out in a more consistent way. especially because those storms that tend to form in late May or even early June tend to form very close to the United States and don't necessarily give a lot of lead time before they begin affecting people.
Yeah, so in the name of public safety, they're going to go ahead and issue their regular season forecast, not on the first day of hurricane season, June 1st, but earlier, May 15th. We've had Beryl, we've had Bonnie, we've had systems across the southeast coast. Typically, one of those zones is more likely to be impacted by an early May system, and they're going to make sure that they are ahead of the game, watching trends over the past many years, and saying, hey, we need to bump up and move up the issuance of those regular season forecasts. They'll be keeping you updated. Their forecast coming out a little bit later, a little closer to the official start of hurricane season. And we too, WTOC Weather Team, will be keeping you updated. WTOC.com. Click on that Hurricane Center tab, and we will be keeping you updated there. You can also get the latest and greatest information, track where tropical systems are, the latest tropical alerts, watches, warnings, advisories in place, sea surface temperatures, wave heights, all of that information, WTOC.com on the Hurricane Center tab. And it is also free and easy to download in the WTOC weather app, so definitely something we will be watching, and we'll be posting Twitter, Facebook, Jamie and Dave keeping you updated as they release their forecast here in about 40 minutes. Guys.
Well, with more and more people getting vaccinated, we're beginning to see some of Savannah's most popular attractions welcome more guests and slowly get back to normal. One of those places
Hello, everyone. Good morning. We are tracking pleasant conditions across the coastal empire and the South Carolina Lowcountry right now. Temperatures as we approach noon in the mid to upper 70s across Chatham County. Elba Island, that thermometer a little delayed in giving its reading to us. 68 there with the last update. 80 degrees on Wilmington Island, 74 Tybee Island. I was out there just a little bit ago, and temperatures felt quite nice, and it's in the mid to upper 70s inland as well. Good morning. I am a meteorologist, Cutter Martin, here in the WTOC Digital News and Weather Center. We're going to talk about a couple things today, give you that typical afternoon forecast out the door for the lunch hour, but also going to address something pretty big released by Colorado State University this morning about 10 a.m. You may have watched the news at morning break, and you may have noticed that I was out on Tybee Island talking about hurricane season, one of these forecasts that Colorado State was going to be issuing. They put that out, and they're calling for a busier than average Atlantic hurricane season. So just want to let you know, weather-wise, we are nice. We're going to dive into the tropics here, let you know what we are tracking, though, as well. And again, there is a lot of data to still go over. There is still a lot of uncertainty in that hurricane season forecast. Nothing is set in stone. But starting to get a clearer picture that not only is the weather going to be nice today, we know that, but we could have a busier hurricane season coming up here within the next couple of months. So let's get to the topic at hand. First, beginning with the forecast. 2021 hurricane season. This is the forecast not from the National Hurricane Center, but rather from Colorado State University. And you can see the 1981 to 2010 average. And of course, there's no such thing as 12.1. named storm, 6.4 hurricanes, 2.7 major hurricanes. You're just not going to get that in reality, but mathematically speaking, that is the average. Colorado State this year forecasting 17 named storms. That's above the average of around 12, and we'll say an average of 6 hurricanes. They're forecasting 8 for this season, and let's say an average of 3 major hurricanes. They are forecasting 4 major hurricanes for this 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. The season, of course, running June 1st until November 30th. And a reminder, this is one entity and one forecast, though it is looking pretty likely. Unfortunately, if you don't like hurricanes, and a lot of us would rather have it be calm from a damage and a local impact perspective, the likelihood is there for a busy Atlantic hurricane season. Couple factors at play here when talking about why so many folks top minds in the biz are expecting a busy hurricane season. Number one being water temperatures off of Peru across the central and northeastern Pacific, southwest of Mexico. Water temperatures have been cooler than kind of a sustained average there, and that has given it the designation La Nina. You may have heard that. You have La Nina, you have neutral, you have El Nino. La Nina means a pool of cooler than normal water temperatures to the south and west of Mexico, and that tends to favor active hurricane seasons across the Atlantic basin. We had a La Nina episode last season. Of course, we all know how that one was. 2020 hurricane season was pretty nasty. So we're going to be watching water temperatures in that region. La Nina episode, a weak La Nina or a cool neutral phase of water temperatures there, meaning still a continuation of cooler than normal ocean temperatures, sea surface temperatures in that region, look to prevail. Will warm a little bit. How much it warms? A little bit uncertain. Now keep in mind, if we get to neutral, warm neutral, or even an El Nino episode, that would favor less activity in the Atlantic basin. That would favor a quieter hurricane season. Looking unlikely that we're going to get all the way to El Nino, but we'll have to watch. Are we cool neutral, or water's just a tinge cooler than normal in that region than average, or are they a tinge warmer than average? Those subtle differences, believe it or not, can have huge impacts on the hurricane season here across our pond, so to speak, the Atlantic basin. Speaking of which, it's not just about the waters in the Pacific. We'll be watching temperatures heat up across the Atlantic basin as well. Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, southwestern Atlantic. How warm do we get? Which parts of the Atlantic get warmest in relation to average especially? Do we have any warm eddies forming? Look at the Gulf of Mexico, that tinge of dark red, a pool of warm water already starting to develop there. So a lot to consider. And remember, the sea surface temperature, while a lot of people love to look at those maps, they can be incredibly warm, but if you have other factors that negate tropical systems forming, it doesn't mean you're going to have a busy season. That's just one factor. Anything with hurricane season, each individual factor, if you look at it solo and it may be impressive and you get a little nervous, just remember everything has to line up in order for these to be actualized, in order for something to actually be active or not active. So we're breaking down these variables, piece by piece, one by one, and just know that everything has to come together just right for it to be an incredibly active hurricane season. Right now it does look active, but to what extent? That's what we're going to be figuring out. So the highlights of the season, 2021, still looking like it's not set in stone, as hurricane seasons this far in advance often are not set in stone as far as the forecasts are concerned. Warming trend in the Pacific sea surface temperatures, that's underway. Of course, La Nina, El Nino, none of these episodes last forever. We're kind of heading out of La Nina towards a neutral scenario, but how warm we get and how quickly will be crucial in determining activity here across the Atlantic basin as far as hurricane season is concerned. A weak La Nina or a cool neutral water scenario in the Pacific Ocean is most likely, meaning a busier than normal hurricane season is likely, but not quite certain, especially when we're talking about to what extent. I want to remind folks we are commenting, we're talking, we're chatting weather on Facebook, WTOC TV. Mike, hello to you. Gene, good morning. Good morning to you, Cindy. Lisa, hi there. Diane, good morning for watching from the borough. Enjoy your day as well. Mike Sullivan says, subject to change, of course. There is always uncertainty in weather, especially with long-term forecasts, but it is looking pretty likely that we're going to have a busier than normal Atlantic hurricane season. Of course, it doesn't have to be busy to have a big local impact. It only takes one storm. I know it may sound a little cliche, but really that's some sound advice there. So just make sure you are always prepared for any tropical impact, from having a plan to developing a kit, even in the quiet hurricane seasons, because there have been many examples of major cities on the U.S. Coast, Gulf Coast, East Coast, pretty much anywhere, where the season as a whole may have been quiet, but their local areas were targeted pretty severely by specific tropical systems. An example would be the hurricane season in 1983. Quiet overall. We did not have the A storm or the first storm until August. It was Alicia, a little bit of in town and kind of back home connection here. Alicia was a pretty nasty storm that went through the Houston metro, and of course it was impactful for them, but overall, season as a whole, it was pretty quiet. So it really just depends, and something we'll be watching here over the next several weeks and on into hurricane season. Sue asking on Facebook about the weekend. WTOC TV, again, that's the place to stream your weather questions, and we will be answering them. I'll do my best to answer them here pretty quickly. If I miss anything, sometimes it's hard to monitor that Facebook feed, get every single question. Reminder, you can always reach out to me, WTOC TV, Cutter Martin on Facebook, and at Cutter Martin on Twitter and on Instagram. All right, Sue, here comes that forecast, virtual forecast today. We have a lot of sunshine. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 80s. I do think as we head into the afternoon, Sue, we're going to have more clouds moving in, and those south and southwesterly breezes will be a little gustier today compared to the past couple of days. You may notice that. So with the increasing breeze, clouds increasing later in the day, you may be thinking, hey, there's changes coming, and Sue, you would be right. We do have a rain chance this weekend. We're going to be monitoring that tomorrow and Saturday. I think tomorrow's rain chance is scattered as early as the morning, and then hit or miss through the day. I think between maybe sunrise or just before sunrise and perhaps 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, that's going to be the greatest rain chance. It is scattered though. It is hit or miss. That means that you don't have to cancel your weekend plans, so be aware of rain in the area, particularly if you live west of Interstate 95. So if you have Friday dinner plans, I think you're okay. Starting to dry up by then, but if you have a sports practice or maybe you have a lunch plan, picnic outside Friday afternoon, 3-day weekend, if that's your scenario and you live in Statesboro, Swainsboro, Medder-Millen, maybe down into Hazelhurst and Vidalia, these western and inland communities, if that is your time, your place, your event that's coming up Friday, tomorrow, it's going to be a good time to kind of keep an eye on the forecast. Again, WTOC weather app, WTOC.com radar, always there. You can, if you have the app, you can even be alerted to rain approaching your area. You can time out that rain for you or its arrival and departure to a pretty accurate extent and give you alerts to any nasty storms that may be developing. So again, that's the scenario for Friday. Saturday, Sue, I think the day begins dry, maybe an isolated morning shower, coastal areas and low country. But then we're going to be watching a line of storms, Sue, in middle and west Georgia roll in late in the day. More so late afternoon and evening, and those storms will tend to weaken as they get east and into our area, especially if you live in Savannah and an island and beach community. They will tend to fall apart in the weekend, but western areas, a storm or two may still pack a punch. We're talking some gusty winds, lightning, some brief heavy rain. The risk of severe weather is very low, but it's not quite zero, so I do think a storm or two could become strong. A good day to have alerts turned on in the WTOC weather app just in case, maybe weather radio just in case, and not expecting any widespread severe weather. And a good chunk of your Saturday will be dry. It's just the later the afternoon hours, the late afternoon hours rather, and then on into the evening that we're going to be watching for some of these storms to creep on in. And again, temperature is pretty comfortable, upper 70s, lower 80s, maybe a little bit muggy. And then I think just some lingering scattered showers on Sunday. And then we're drying out and we're going to warm back up, highs back in the mid 80s heading into next week. So again, the highlight of this forecast, this little digital weather conversation, was the active hurricane season we have coming up. So again, we're going to be watching this pretty closely. It's looking likely that we'll have an active hurricane season. WTOC.com/weather. That's a good resource. Click on that Hurricane Center tab. We'll be keeping you updated. I have actually put up a story, WTOC.com, on the Hurricane Center page, kind of breaking down some of the factors that we also discussed right here. You can catch it on that Hurricane Center page. And I'm going to join Chief Meteorologist Dave Turley really here in about, as I look at the time down here, in about 20 minutes. I'll see you at the news at noon. We're going to break down the tropics. Again, don't worry. Just going to give you that first heads up. You're welcome, Sue. We're still chatting on Facebook there. We're going to give you that first heads up about hurricane season coming up in about 20 minutes. The news at noon. Have yourself a great day. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow, Friday morning, back here on the digital weather forecast around 11 a.m. Have a great day.
And we're going to send it over to meteorologist Carter Martin.
Yeah, Dave, whether we like it or not, hurricane season getting closer, officially now 54 days out from the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season, that being June 1st. Colorado State crunched the numbers, looking at data over the past several weeks, put together their first initial forecast for the upcoming season, and they are forecasting a busier than normal, more active than normal hurricane season based on 1981 to 2010 averages, 12.1 being the average. Of course, you can't have 1/10 of a storm, so we're going to round these numbers. 12 named storms is the average, 6 hurricanes is the average, and about 3 major hurricanes being the average. Now, Colorado State forecasting 17 named storms, 8 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes, so not a super active season as of the latest forecast, but still busier than normal. The reason being, the big one at least, cooler than normal ocean waters across the Pacific Ocean. That means we could be in a La Nina scenario or maybe a cool neutral scenario. You can see that cooler strip of yellow still very present just off of Peru and west of South America. And of course, we're watching our own water temperatures heating up across the Atlantic basin. How warm those waters get, all the other factors at play, that will determine just how busy we get. This forecast is not quite set in stone, but looking likely to be a busy season. Another update from the Hurricane Center, they will begin issuing forecasts not June 1st, but now May 15th. So a lot to track over the next several weeks. We'll fine tune this forecast, pass along updates as we get them.